conceptually linked movements in art, which oddly is very resilient. Conceptual art is still, or conceptually based work, artists who work that way, is still relevant today. I mean, it's one of the most durable sensibilities, much more than surrealism or abstract expressionism or pop art. Conceptual art is still writing today as a major component. So that's kind of where I come from. So I come from an art that is not really commodity-based, object-based, is very much wrapped in theory, comes from a highly resolved sort of theoretical position about objects and about the dematerialization, breaking them down into more elemental compositions. So I'm back up now into a more realistic world of public art that is somewhat integrated with architecture and people. So, this is a work that is in a sculpture park, and a sculpture park is kind of it's sort of like the closest thing to a gallery, except it's outdoors. It's not really truly public art. It's sort of like gallery art that has protection in a exterior situation. This is in Lithuania, so that's quite far away, and it's a park that you have to give them the artwork, or you give them the idea, a model, and they build it and they keep it. So that's fine, because pretty difficult to build that. So
what's the material?
It's steel and cement and water.
Oh wow!
And I built two pieces there. I was very happy with the first one, and these are difficult things to build. This one in particular, it does move. It can rock down. It has this sort of anthropomorphic face, you know, eyes, nose, tongue, and it has this kidney-shaped swimming pool in the stomach of the dwelling. Again, kind of referencing a physiological part of the body, the kidney, and as it dips down and back, it fills this pool. Although it doesn't do this every day. I mean, it can do it. This aspect of sculpture not being monolithic or frozen, immovable, is something that I've toyed with for years and years. I've always wanted the work to have an extended sort of aspect where it could be seen as related a little bit to theater, in that something happens, something that can happen. This is the Macrotech building in Freiburg, Germany, and it's a membrane that, and inside is where all the sophisticated cerebral work is done. So when I got the commission for this, I was very happy, because the architect seemed extremely open to allowing me to engage in a work that would be expressive of what they did inside the building. The work is called Jump and Twist. It takes place in three parts, one out here, one breaking into the membrane, and the other one inside the building. That's the third part. So it's a little bit like a metamorphosis. Outside, it's sort of heavy, and it does have architectural sort of images that resemble something that can move or fly, animate itself. And it does. It's sort of poetically, it jumps. And as it jumps, it twists. And as it twists, it becomes more like what I envision a cerebral activity being, which is a oscillating, reflective, light sort of structure that wants to be somewhat reminiscent of the process that one could imagine the mind engaged in pursuing what they do inside this building, which is extremely theoretical. So as it twists, it becomes lighter, and then here it turns constantly, revolves, reflects the inside of the building. So this isn't a bad way to, many ways, but one of the ways in which a public artist can enter into a project. They could begin to integrate the levels of relationship one has with the site and bring that into the work, hopefully in a inspired way. This is really not a work that has a conversation with any immediate architectural counterpart. It's sort of more like a traditional sculpture, almost a monolithic sculpture. It just sort of sits on the ground. But it does sort of carry on a rather oblique conversation with architecture, because it is a church turned upside down. And after a while, you'll learn that you really can't play around with churches. Better to leave them alone, because a lot of the trouble you get into is not always that interesting. It has to do with people's
lawyers,
as you can imagine, And this was commissioned for Stanford University, but then they found difficulty with it and had to step aside, and so they didn't finally take it, and it went to Toronto, to Vancouver, Canada. So I always have a lot of appreciation for the Canadians at being more liberal or whatever.
Well, I'm curious, because that's the piece I think Brooke Berry used for the cover of her book on public sculpture.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that particular book, and seeing the image on the cover, it immediately gives you this impression that public sculpture can be other than, say,